Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel and good morning. Hope you're having a great day wherever it is you are. Today we're in Celebration. I'm going for a walk and I thought while I'm walking I could chat with you about something because of course, as you guys know, we've been spending a lot of time talking about vacation planning. I really want to focus on that this year, and so I figure what better place to get into another vacation planning discussion than right here in the town that Disney built. So walk with me and let's talk about how long your Disney vacation should be. Now, as you may have guessed, this is another one of those conversations. It's going to be different for everybody who has it because everyone's wants, needs, and capabilities are all going to be different. So you might want to do a 3-week vacation, but you don't have the capability of doing that, whether it's because you don't have the time off or you can't afford it. Maybe you just can't make it work for you and your family. So there's a lot of different scenarios here that can lead to a lot of different outcomes. And it's important to keep that in mind going in. However, what I want to talk about today are some of my thoughts on timelines to hopefully help you figure out which one is going to work best for you based on what it is you want to do. Now, as I say all the time, I'm a firm believer that you can make anything work for you and your family. Sure, you might have to make some sacrifices, you might have to adjust your plans, but you can still make pretty much any timeline work. And I'll tell you, I know that comment in and of itself is going to raise a lot of questions, so let me explain. Walt Disney World is a big place. There's a lot to do here. We talked about that in some of our previous conversations. And while that's true, it's also true that different people really want to experience different things at Walt Disney World. They have different priorities. Again, it's one of those things that I say all the time. And I know it's going to sound a little repetitive to some of you, but it's important that I keep saying it because it's one of those things that's often forgotten. And so as long as you have a solid grasp on what your wants, needs, and priorities are, you can mold Disney and pretty much any vacation destination, if we're being completely honest with each other here, to work for you versus trying to mold you and your family to work for that vacation destination. And this, like so many other things, can lead to a much bigger discussion. And we're going to be having some of those discussions in the future. I want to talk a little bit about whether or not you really need to visit all 4 theme parks. And of course, we're going to talk about how to build an itinerary and do all of that as well. So make sure that you subscribe so that you don't miss any of that, especially if you're here for those vacation planning discussions that we've been having. But without getting into too much of the nitty-gritty of that today, I want to get back to that timeline discussion. That's why we're here in the first place. So when it comes to timelines, at least in my opinion, which is what we're talking about here today, everyone's going to have different opinions, right? There are the things that I think you can make work, and then there are the things that I think are ideal. Now, in my opinion, I think that you can absolutely make a half day at each park work for you. So for example, maybe you start your day at Animal Kingdom and then finish the day at Magic Kingdom. That'll allow you to have a great day in the morning and still enjoy the park, including the fireworks, in the evening, especially if that's a priority for you. Of course, we can get into so many other combinations as well, but this is just an example of how it could work. And if you do go this route, of course, you'll do that by getting a park hopper ticket that allows you to visit more than one park per day. Don't worry, we will be talking all about tickets and ticket media soon. Of course, if you have any questions about any of that, pop it in the comments so we can make sure that we address those when we have that discussion. But of course, there are pros and cons to going this route. Pro being you can have a shorter vacation, still see the same amount of stuff for the most part. The con being that you don't have a full day at the park, so you're going to be limited to a certain number of things that you can do. So there are trade-offs, but nonetheless, still doable. And I'll tell you what, there's an even wackier option here, and that is doing all 4 parks, or at least visiting all 4 parks in one day, which is totally doable with a park hopper ticket. Is it the best option? No. Can you do it? Totally. But again, you really need a firm grasp on the wants, needs, and priorities that your family has, especially if you're going to go the route of squeezing your vacation into a very small time frame. Now, with that said, in my opinion, there is an ideal bare minimum time frame for experiencing each park, and that is 1 day per park that you're choosing to visit. Now, I want to be very clear. I don't necessarily think that you need to visit all 4 theme parks when you're at Walt Disney World, particularly if you're not interested in one of them. Why waste the time, money, and energy to go somewhere you don't want to be, you know? But of course, that's a discussion for another day. And yes, we're going to sit down and talk about that. But I think you can have a really great experience at any of the 4 theme parks if you give it a whole day. 1 day. It's going to give you, at least in my opinion, the opportunity to see the most and do the most and really have time to wander around the park as well and at least get a sense of all the fun that there is to be had at that park. Of course, you're not going to see everything with one day. You won't see everything with a week. Goodness knows, I'm there all the time. You guys know that. And there are still things that I'm seeing for the first time. There are still things that I'm learning about. And there are additions and changes made so often that you really can't stay ahead of it. But still, I think that you can have a really solid experience if you spend one day at each of the parks that you want to visit. But of course, this is only part of the story, isn't it? Like, a vacation is more than just the time that you're going to spend in the theme parks. We absolutely have to talk about things like travel days, which are a huge part of any vacation. Now, I'm of the opinion that you should have one day left for travel on either end of your vacation. Well, it's not necessarily the way that everyone's going to go. Some people are going to arrive at Walt Disney World and then go straight to a park. I think that to have the best experience, dedicating a day to travel on either end of your vacation is the way to go. And I say this for a few different reasons. First and foremost, travel days can be hard and they can take a lot out of you. And I think that especially if you only have a limited amount of time at Walt Disney World, maybe you're traveling with a family, giving yourself that day to get where you're going, get settled, and figure yourself out can make all the difference. And the same is true on the back end of your vacation as well. Having that day to get yourself squared away, relax, pack up, and geared up for the trip back home makes a huge difference. And I don't think that people really appreciate this until they find themselves in that scenario. I honestly can't tell you how many times I've planned trips with people who push back on this. And I'm like, no, just trust me this once. And then when they get home, they can't believe the difference that having that dedicated travel day made to the end of the vacation. And so that's why I generally recommend that people do have that travel day at the beginning and the end of their trip. And look, just because you don't have anything planned on a travel day doesn't mean that it can't be amazing or that you just have to sit around in the room and do nothing. There are so many things to do at Walt Disney World that you could do on your travel day that don't require a ticket, so you can enjoy them at a little bit more of a leisurely pace. Disney Springs is a great example of this. Of course, you can go enjoy any of the resorts at Walt Disney World and you can access that via Disney transportation. If you're staying on property, you can do that super easy, but even if you're staying off property and driving yourself, you can catch transportation to Disney resorts from Disney Springs, which has free parking. So that's another great option available to you that can have you actually enjoying your travel day and using it to enhance your vacation versus the stress of what sometimes comes from trying to squeeze a park in on the day that you arrive or the day that you leave. So when it comes down to it, when we wrap up this conversation about timelines and how long your Disney vacation should be, I think that while it's safe to say that certain things are doable, like doing all 4 parks on the same day you arrive and then leaving the next morning, it's not really the best plan. And just to be clear, because I know that I might not have been as clear about this in some of our past discussions, just because something isn't a good plan doesn't mean I'm going to keep it from you. I want you to know what all of your options are, because I do think that if you have the right mindset and maybe you're feeling a little crazy, you can make that work for you and your family. And I don't want to take away options just because they don't work for me or I don't think they're ideal, because I know that they might work for someone else. In the case of 4 theme parks in the same day on the day you arrive, or 4 theme parks in the same day at all, I don't really think that that's a great plan, though it is doable. But what's the best route, at least in my opinion? For me, that would be 1 travel day at the beginning of your trip to get yourself situated, 1 day for each of the theme parks that you want to visit, and then 1 day at the end of your trip in order to get yourself wrapped up, squared away, and ready to go home. So if you intend on visiting all 4 theme parks, that would be a total of 6 days. Of course, you can visit as many theme parks as you want to, and you can realistically squeeze 2 parks into 1 day. So if I were making a recommendation for someone who had a very limited timeline, I think you can pull it off in 4 days. 1 day at the beginning of your trip as a travel day, 1 day for your first 2 parks, another day for your second 2 parks, and then another travel day dedicated to rest, relaxation, and getting yourself packed and ready to go. But of course, those are just my thoughts. There are so many different options out there, and I'd love to hear your thoughts about this. So pop it in the comments down below. Let's continue to have this conversation. And as always, make sure that you subscribe, especially if you want to join us for another one of these discussions. We have so many of them coming, and I know you're not going to want to miss them. As always, I'm looking forward to seeing what you have to say, and I really look forward to you joining me for our next conversation on this topic and all the other adventures that we have. I hope to see you there. Until then, have a great day, everyone.